Mr. Reed M. Zellers was born on February 18, 1946 in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. He served in the Vietnam War. Mr. Zellers has 4 brothers and a sister. His father was an auto mechanic and an auto salesman, while his mother was a housewife. Mr. Zellers was a 20-year-old student in college when he enlisted in the Army. He joined the Army because all of his brothers served, therefore feeling obligated.
Mr. Zellers left home to go to a training camp in Fort Polk, Louisiana in July. He didn't feel it was difficult leaving home because he had already done so when he left for college. While he was in Louisiana, he learned the basic necessities of the military. These would be hand-to-hand combat, rifles, marksmanship, walking with packs, types of weapons, and battle tactics. Even though these all may seem very difficult, Mr. Zellers explains how the hardest part of training was the heat.
Mr. Zellers said he didn't have any problem adapting to the way of life in the military. He says the reasoning for this is because his mother taught him to be happy with what he gets. He spent most of his military time in a 2-story barracks. This was fortunate because most men slept in tents with wooden floors, maybe even dirt floors. He had many good times with his friends in this barracks, some including friends being knocked out cold during a battle, but not from the battle itself.
My roommate, Jeffrey Smith, he now lives in Washington, D.C. We were at a barracks that was a single story, just one floor. And every night we would get rocketed and mortared later and later every night. So every night we stayed up because we didn't want to get chased out of bed. And during the day, Jeff found this spring at the motor pool, which is where the trucks are kept. And he put it on the door because we had a screen door that you could open, but it wouldn't close. So at night, the mosquitoes come in. Well, we didn't want the mosquitoes. We had mosquito covers over our bunks. So he put the spring on the door so it would close. Well, one night we were sitting at the Officers Club having a beer, and it was getting late. It was like 11:30, and we didn't have to get up for a mission the next morning. But, well, they're not going to rock it tonight. They're not going to mortar us. So we went back to our barracks and we went to bed. 15 minutes after we got to bed, the rockets started coming in. The mortars started coming in. I ran and got to the door, pushed the door open, ran outside, dove into the bunker to protect myself. No Jeff. Well, guess what happened? He cut to the door as the door closed. Hit him square in the face, knocked him back on the floor. He just laid there the whole attack. He was out cold.
Many people expect the food in the military to be terrible, and sometimes it is. But Mr. Zellers says he was lucky to have the mess hall he did. They served the best food. He even began to enjoy liver and onions. His buddies and himself would soak pound cake in fuel and then light it on fire to heat the rest of their food. They didn't mind doing this because the pound cakes were horrible. Even though he enjoyed most of the food served in the mess hall, Mr. Zellers still missed his mother's home cooking.
Mr. Zellers was a warrant officer during the war, but was given the title CW5 in 1990 or 1992. He served in both the 3 Corps and the 4 Corps. He served in the areas Tra Binh Do, La Binh, and Dien in Vietnam. He was part of the Air Cavalry, which scouted for enemy ships, developed the fight, and then inserted the troops into battle. He had gone on many missions, some of which were the Tet Offensive and the May Offensive, both during 1968. During these 2 offensives, he had gotten injured twice. He was shot in the leg and also took shrapnel in the hand.
The Tet Offensive took place in February 1968 over the religious holiday known as Tet. The NVA and Viet Cong planned a coordinated attack on all the U.S. bases there. Luckily, they had not succeeded due to not enough support of the battle. Although they lost this battle, there was still a lot of turmoil during it and after it.
The Tet Offensive had encouraged the May Offensive of 1968. It was a continuation of the Tet Offensive in which the Viet Cong had failed. Again, there was an attempt to attack all the U.S. bases, but yet again the Viet Cong and NVA could not prevail and the U.S. won again.
Mr. Zellers explains how he was fighting for the U.S., but he felt many soldiers had forgotten what they were fighting for and got disillusioned about the war. He made several friendships during the war and still stays in touch with them today. He enjoyed the rush of flying over enemies while sitting low in his seat, dodging bullets.
Well, I thought we let the Vietnamese people down. We went there with the right reasons, but politicians and politics got into the war, and I think we let them down. We really did not support them the way I thought we should. And that's the way a lot of the guys felt. You know, they were there to do a job. we couldn't do it. The politicians got involved.
When they reached his home, the family had held a large party. During this party, though, Mr. Zellers was catching up on his sleep. He had an exhausting couple of days, so he slept through the entire party.
When Mr. Zellers returned home from Vietnam, he did not have a difficult time readjusting back to normal life. The reason for that was because he immediately joined the National Guard. He was with people that understood what he went through because they went through the same thing. He says that a lot of his friends that returned home from Vietnam will never be the same again because of the war, and he is thankful that he had the National Guard to help him through that time. Mr. Zellers' family and friends tried to understand what he had been through, but they just had no idea and could not relate to him.
The reaction Mr. Zellers and other members of the Army got when they returned home was not at all what they had expected. When they came into San Francisco, California, he said they were completely ignored. Also, a man that he had known in his entire life who would come and watch his Little League baseball games saw him coming up the street one day. Mr. Zellers said that when the man saw him, the man crossed the street to the other side and then came back over after Mr. Zellers had passed. The man never spoke to Mr. Zellers again. That really hurt him. He did not like the way that the Vietnam veterans were treated at all when they returned home.
What kind of reaction did you get from people when you came home?
I did not enjoy that, and that's why I think I was bitter for years about that. San Francisco, we got into California, and we were ignored. I remember walking down my home street. Now, because I'd been wounded, I was walking with a cane, and I was walking down my home street in Richland. And a gentleman I knew my whole life growing up, he used to come to my Little League baseball games and my Legion baseball games. He saw me coming up the street. You know what he did? He crossed the street to the opposite side, and once I was by, he came back on my side. He never spoke to me after I came back from Vietnam, and that hurt. So I didn't like the way we were treated. I thought we were treated very unfairly, and it was tough getting over that.
Finding a job when he returned home from the war was difficult because no one wanted to hire a Vietnam veteran. He tried very hard to get a job with the airlines, but they turned him down right away. After he got turned down by the airlines, he got a full-time job with the National Guard. As soon as he went full-time with the National Guard, he was offered a job with the airlines. Mr. Zellers didn't want to bother with them, even though he says he probably would have made a good living with the airlines. He is just thankful that the Guard came through for him, and that is the reason he stayed in the military for 35 years.
While Mr. Zellers was serving in the Vietnam War, he was awarded the Purple Heart for being shot in the leg, and he also took shrapnel in the hand. Mr. Zellers was also awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for doing an exceptional job as a helicopter pilot. He was also honored with many other awards, but some of them got lost in a move. Mr. Zellers also received other awards that were not from the Vietnam War, but are still very important.
When he was a helicopter pilot, he was shot down. He explained in one word that it was scary.
Could you explain what it was like being shot down?
Scary. In one word, scary. I got shot down during Tet. Well, right after Tet. Tet really, I should clarify that. Tet really didn't just end. It carried on for a few months. But you could tell just within the first couple days that they were not going to be successful. And I was in a gunship, and we took heavy automatic weapons fire. And they hit us in the right spot in the fuel line. And our engine quit, and down we went. That was scary, not knowing, because I was only in country a month and a half. So I was brand new to all this. I was with an old guy who knew what was going on. I didn't know what was going on, except I knew we were getting shot at. And down we went, and it was scary. I was a 20-year-old kid, and I was really, really concerned. No, wait a minute, I was 22 at that time. And I was really worried, what's going to happen to me? And we were pinned down for an hour. We couldn't move. we were taking heavy machine gun fire. And all we had, I had a .38 revolver, the other pilot had a .38 revolver, and then we had 2 door gunners who had machine guns. But you know, when you're hiding behind a rice paddy, I don't know if you know what a rice paddy is. A rice paddy is where they raise rice, and it's a flooded field, and the rice grows in the water. And rice paddy dikes are only about maybe foot high, 1.5 feet high. And when you got to lay down and get below the rice paddy dike to protect yourself, you know, I'm not a thin guy, and I wasn't a thin guy in Vietnam. I weighed 165, 167, something like that in Vietnam. I was not a thin guy. So to hide down below those dikes so you don't get shot at or don't get hit, that was interesting. That was scary. Any other questions on that? That was the one time. I got shot down a total of 3 times. And the 3rd time is when I took the bullet in the leg. And I could not, thank goodness there was somebody there, because I could not have gotten away. But we were far enough, and we had enough protection there that I got out of that. I was lucky.
People said that when Mr. Zellers came back from the war, he had really changed, but he did not notice it. He said he was being a very callous person, and it had taken time to get over that. He was never an outgoing person when he came back from the war, but he is now more outgoing than he ever was in his life. He also had a tough time making new friends when he returned home because he was afraid of losing them. He tended to stray away from people. The reason for that was because he didn't want to get close to somebody since he wasn't sure if they were going to be there the next day or not. Unfortunately, he found that to be the way it was in Vietnam. Some life lessons that Mr. Zellers learned from being in the military are: cherish every day you are here. Try to do your best every day while you are here, and try to remember your family and friends because you are not here that long, so take care of them.
After joining the Army, Mr. Zellers never regretted his decision to enlist because he was proud to be serving his country. Also, if he had the choice, he would still go into the Vietnam War because he is now more experienced and knows how to handle more situations than he did when he was 23 years old.
Mr. Zellers is now involved in a few organizations that deal with military veterans. He belongs to a local American Legion, which was the past commander of, and he belongs to the Veterans of Foreign War Post. His Legion posts sponsored trips every year for the past 3 years for veterans. The first year they sponsored World War II veterans, last year was Korean War veterans, and this year was Vietnam War veterans. The Vietnam veterans went on a trip with students from the local high school to spend the day in Washington, D.C. The Legion also does a lot for the local VA hospital, such as running bingo games for returning veterans that are wounded and coming back from Afghanistan, and the many other places that the U.S. military is serving. Mr. Zellers says that getting a smile on the faces of men and women who are in wheelchairs is one of the neatest things and makes him feel really good inside.
Mr. Zellers is now retired from flying and has not flown anything in about 3 years. He is starting to miss it, but is happy now helping out at the Legion and the Veterans Administration and spending time with his family. Thank you, Mr. Reed M. Zellers, for your service in the United States Army. Even though you weren't appreciated as much as you should have been when you came home, we would like to let you know that you are now.